again, it's Bronze and Modern Gods. I'm John.
I'm Richard.
Welcome, everybody. Hope you had a great week. We've got all our usual stuff, underrated books of the week, viewer mail, all sorts of fun things. A little old fart rule today, Richard. Want to go back to 1983 with me?
I wish I could go back to 1983. I would be a danger.
Yeah, it's that old thing. You always dream. I want to go back knowing what I know now.
Right.
But I think if you and I went back in time knowing what we know now, we would be burned at the stake as witches. Could you imagine, we invent the iPhone or we tell people about the internet and it's like, they're evil, kill them. Hey, before you kill us, why don't you follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Bronze Modern Gods? You know about the algorithm thing on YouTube. Hit like, hit subscribe, help us out, leave us a review. And let's get things started, Richard, by going back in time, like we just talked about, for our hot book of the week, Uncanny X-Men 214.
Yeah, this is Taylor Swift and the possibility.
I like your reaction. It's like, we got to talk about Taylor Swift.
We have to talk about her. And because it's still news. It's still news. Mm-hmm. It's relevant because her and her Swifties are still just clamoring for the idea that Taylor Swift will become Dazzler. The Dazzler Mania has gripped the nation.
Well, it's not usually these rumors are like, whatever, fine. This one is not entirely unsubstantiated. I mean, there are images of her with the Deadpool stars at the NFL game. I mean, there's Hugh Jackman, there's Ryan Reynolds. As a Dazzler stan, as the kids say, I'm 100% behind this. Justice for Dazzler. I mean, how long on this show have I been stomping my feet and pounding the Dazzler drum over here? So I'm excited? ?
It would be immense. The MCU has brought in a whole bunch of fans who are not comic book fans, but are movie fans. If she comes into the MCU, she will bring her legion of fans into the fray. And values for books like this one will skyrocket just because of supply and demand.
We got to be a little different here. We could have picked Uncanny X-Men 130 or Dazzler #1, but this is the actual issue where Dazzler joins the X-Men. Thanks, Malice, if you've read this issue.
I read it from the newsstand. I haven't read it since, though.
This is that weird period between John Romita Jr. and Mark Silvestri where it was like all these fill-in artists and it was just kind of directionless at this point, but I was still hanging on. High-grade copies of this are selling for a whopping $5 to $8 on eBay. The last sale for a CGC 9.8 was $65. That's actually a hair below the 90-day average of $78. And there's a reason why. There's plenty of these in the wild. This is a hugely ordered book, right?
Right. And you'll find these in dollar bins left and right. And you'll find them in runs of old X-Men. It's a very common book.
What caught my eye when I looked at this today, I forgot this is an Art Adams cover.
You're right. I did not notice that until I'm looking at the cover now. That is amazing.
It's a very strange looking Art Adams cover.
Yeah.
Strangely for Art Adams, the anatomy seems a little off and the pose is weird. But yeah, I remember this being an Art Adams cover when I saw it today. I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Fun times. Before we dive into the rest of our features, it's our newest feature that you guys seem to be digging, Show and Tell. Richard, do you want to start? You have one whopping book to show this week.
I have not done a lot of shopping. Well, let me take that back. The books that I have ordered have not arrived yet. So there are some things that are in flight, let's say. The book that I got back from CGC, this is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles #1. It's a second print, and it came back a 5.5. This book had a lot of flaws in it, and I got it because mainly it was a second print. You can verify by looking at the indicia. It will say second print. So I posed to you and Forrest earlier this week the question. Here I have this 5.5 second print, and I also have a third print, which is a 9.4. So
Mhm.
it's high grade versus mid grade. So the question is, if I was going to get rid of one, which one should I get rid of? The 5.5 second print or the 9.4 third print?
You know my answer. Do you want me to just repeat
Go
it,
ahead.
or
Yeah, go ahead.
the third printing? There's many, many, many more copies out there, and in fact, the fact that you have a 9.4 copy tells me there are many more high grade copies of the
Mhm.
third printing than there are of that much, much scarcer second printing. I would be happy with a 5.5 second print, kind of like my 11 Rockets #1. It's a 6.0, but it's a first print. I'd rather have that than a 9.8 second print or third print or fourth print.
You're absolutely right. I got the 9.4 third print. There was a frenzy of, at one point I had 6 copies of #1. So all third prints. Um, and I've sold them off since. And I came across this 9.4 and I wanted it for the collection. Then I came across the 5.5 raw at a local comic shop and picked it up. So I agree with you. If I sell one of the two, because there's also the
The OCD completionist
yes,
weirdo in you that wants
yes,
every printing.
there is that. Because I now I have the second, the third, the fifth. I just need the fourth print, and the hard to get first print, which
Mhm.
is going to be almost impossible. But hope springs eternal. So I'm not in a huge hurry to sell either one of them. So I may just hold on to them and see what happens.
It might not be a bad idea, but let me ask you this: how are your credit card balances?
They're pretty decent. They're pretty decent.
Because if you need to pay something off to
Yeah.
avoid paying interest, then I would sell that third print and you're funding your hobby, blah, blah, blah. You guys have heard me say it a billion times. Fiscal responsibility, please. Thank you. That's your only book this week, huh?
That is literally the only package I got
That is
in.
that is some fiscal responsibility right there. I have a big boy book coming in ish uh, in the next week. Hopefully, I can show it off next week. So instead, I dug into the collection now that I'm really actually organizing my collection for the first time in probably years. You guys, I'm actually getting things alphabetized, chronological, etc., and I'm finding things that I'm just so pleased. It's like going to a comic shop or a show. It's like, oh, I need that. Wait, I have it. It's my collection. I want to focus show and tell this week on a little gem, a very obscure early Marvel Silver Age title, non superhero called Gunsmoke Western. Richard, ever hear of this?
Not related to the TV show.
Nope, nope. I think, well, obviously, Martin Goodman, the publisher, loves a good thieving of intellectual property when he sees it. So I'm sure they absolutely called it Gunsmoke Western to
Hmm.
get around anything like that. But, it ran for years through the 50s. But near the end of the 50s, like 59, Jack Kirby comes back to Marvel and starts doing these beautiful covers for everything, including Gunsmoke Western. This is Gunsmoke Western 57, which is the first appearance of the new Two Gun Kid. You see him
Yeah.
there at the bottom.
Mhm.
That is uh, the first version of the Two Gun Kid. They would revamp the Two Gun Kid a few years later and to make him more like Daredevil. He was a lawyer that wore a mask. He wasn't blind, but he was in the Old West. I always wonder what would happen if Daredevil was deaf.
What?
Hey, what? Huh? Uh, but Gunsmoke Western, really cool Jack Kirby covers on these. So here's 57. I like that
Now
one.
those are golden age sized.
These I have them in Golden Age Mylars
Hmm.
because I've had these for so long. This is before they created the standard size.
Okay.
So I have them, in those big old Mylars, and I've just never rebagged them. Um, then I've got Gunsmoke Western 58, the next issue, with a really cool Kid Colt Wyatt Earp cover. And Two Gun Kid is reduced to just a little word balloon at the bottom. So you take it in, boys, take it in. And this is just a spectacular cover. This is a classic, number 66, full Two Gun Kid action. Look at that.
That is awesome. You know, I sure wish he was still with us so we could ask what was his favorite genre to do.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine me interviewing Jack Kirby? Oof.
You wouldn't be able to get 4 words out of your mouth.
I barely did when I met him. I was like, bleep, 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 bloop, love you. And this is issue 67. And it's got this little kind of vignette.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I want to make a flip book of that. Let's get the cover out, make it a flip book. But just these gorgeous, gorgeous Jack Kirby covers, and you open it up and it's like Jack Davis or, you know, little bait and switch. There's not a lot of Kirby art inside. But short and sweet show and tell this week. Moving on to your favorite feature on ours, Viewer Mail.
You've got mail.
My first piece of Viewer Mail comes from Planet Lang here on YouTube. Wow. In reference to the thumbnail from last week when we talked about pre-code horror and crime comics, I used the cover of True Crime Comics number 3 on the thumbnail. Wow, I actually have the True Crime comic on the thumbnail. Just got it back from CGC, and I'm the proud owner of the 3rd lowest grade on the census. You got one, though. Just bought it randomly a long time ago because it was old and cheap. Never seen it before or since in the world. Imagine my surprise when it showed up on the thumbnail of my favorite comic show. Thank you.
Thank you.
So weird. Small world. Keep up the great work. Planet Lang. That is a classic Jack Cole crime cover. It's probably, I don't know what other people consider it. It's in definitely my top 10 crime covers because I saw it in the Overstreet Price Guide when I was a kid, probably 1978, 1979. I would buy them. Oh man, Richard, when the Price Guide came out at Walden Books, ooh, it was $9.95. I had to save up my allowance, my paper route money, go to Walden Books and shake while I was finally going to buy it. And they had this in the little slick color section at the front and back. They would have like color photos of covers. And this was one of them. And the way that it spells out rat, you know, in the bullet hole.
Right.
I that cover always stuck with me. So when I decided to do the thumbnail, I absolutely had to throw that in the thumbnail, Planet Lang. I'm glad you have one. Number one, I don't have one. And number two, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yep. Never be ashamed of low grade comics because like John says, you have one and he doesn't. So, you know, regardless of the grades, you know, just owning the comic is key.
Sell it to me. What's your first piece of viewer mail?
My next piece of viewer mail is from our email accounts at bronzeandmoderngods@gmail.com, and it's from JJ. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your podcast and igniting the joy of comics, not simply focusing on grading or financial investment of this lifelong hobby of ours. You're welcome. That's what we do. We have fun. I saw a spotlight on YouTube by Comic Tropes on 3D comics. With all of your talk about Dave Stevens, it was a throwback to 1985 when I first was introduced to his art in Sheena 3D. I thought his pinup style was simple and classic. Later that same year, Old Fart Rule, DNA Agents number 24, gorgeous cover again, was released. Since I have tried to collect many of his cover art, at one of the STCC, I met Dave Stevens and got 2 signed prints from him. Something I cherish more so beyond his passing away. And I truncate a little bit here for length. Enclosed are photos of my signed prints. And thank you for saying that you often slab not for the grade, but simply for our personal gain of owning the book. Absolutely.
Why? Who's going to slab those Millie the Models?
Right. It's got to get it on the census somehow. And to this day, I do buy all the Sheena Queen of the Jungle books, all because of that Dave Stevens book. As always, keep up the hard work and the best podcasts, and maybe hope to see you at Comic-Con in Southern California one day. Yeah. John and I are talking about a con later on this year in Southern California, so look forward to that. Yeah, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, Dave Stevens still is by far one of my favorite artists, and I'm jealous of you having comics or having prints of his that are signed. I have a signed comic It's not great. It's not graded at all. Probably something I should look at getting done. He signed it on the inside cover, so I can still get the blue label. But regardless, his books are great. The Sheena book is excellent. I actually almost put, if for not for the fact that we talk about him so much, I almost,
It's deserved.
yeah. His Halloweenish, he had a Halloween comic that I almost made for the underrated book of the week. But I figured we'll talk maybe next week about Halloween.
Yeah. We always have our spooky annual episode.
Yeah.
Sorry, Richard, were you done?
No, yeah, it's done.
Okay. Well, you mentioned JJ DN Agents 24. Just a reminder about Crossfire and Rainbow. I think issue 3 has a Dave Stevens cover. That was a DN Agents spinoff, and not only is it a Dave Stevens cover, it is an Elvis cover as well. So you have plenty of competition for that. My next piece of viewer mail comes from Flava Flav.
Wow.
I really hope it is the giant clock wearing hype man from Public Enemy.
I am going to pretend that it is.
Okay, me too. It is in response to an older episode of ours where we talked about underrated Bronze Age comics, and we talked about war comics from the Bronze Age, weird war tales, things like that. Flava Flav says, I have been collecting DC war books since the 70s. I have damn near a complete collection of the DC Big Five: Army of War, Our Fighting Forces, GI Combat, All American Men of War, Star Spangled War stories.
Wow, that's impressive.
You forgot about All Out War, Flava Flav, and Men of War. And okay. Of course, with the title changes like Sergeant Rock, Unknown Soldier, I also have a complete run of Weird War tales. Wow. With many extra copies. Hello. I have anything DC War in my collection. Full runs and many duplicates. 5 exclamation points after duplicates. I love the 26 issue series Men of War. There it is. Short runs or one-hit wonders. Blitzkrieg, 4-star Battle Tales, GI War Tales, Army at War, as well as many others. Great video, guys. Should do one on nothing but DC War. Flava Flav, that is not a bad idea. It's niche marketing at its best. But, you know, I have a soft spot for that. I have a full run of Blitzkrieg myself in very high grade. I would get those slab, but no. I'm pouting.
Yeah, you know, war comics have a soft spot for them as well. I was initially introduced to comics from my barbershop, who had a stack of comics as I got my haircut when I was 9 years old. And you were bored sitting there waiting for your father to get his haircut and it'd be your turn. I hated getting my haircut. But he had a stack of comics. And they're all DC. There was things like Commandy was in there. GI Combat was in there. So I read a lot of GI Combat back then, and it definitely gave me a taste for it. So I am really impressed by your collection. That is dedication to complete all of those series. And thank you very much for sharing.
Flava, you must love Joe Kubert. I'm going to assume you love Joe Kubert. That was the one thing, if I'm being really blunt and honest, that kept me from collecting DC War for the longest time, was the preponderance of Joe Kubert covers. I was never a fan. I thought it was too scratchy and sketchy and not finished. I love that Mike Royer, Joe Sinnott kind of finishing on the inks. But much like Frank Robbins, I've grown to love Joe Kubert as I've gotten older. And while we're talking about Frank Robbins, if you guys are not reading Mark Evaniers' blog, News from Me, it's been all Frank Robbins the last couple of weeks where
Wow.
he's defending Frank Robbins and he's getting emails from people like, wow, he was gross. Wow. So it kind of parallels what we talk about on this show. What's your next piece of your mail?
My next piece is from our Instagram account. It's from our buddy from Bronzeville Comics. And he basically sent us an IM talking specifically about something that he saw in Key Collector Comics, which are recent sales for Zoot Comics. I think Richards is influencing other collectors to buy Zoot Comics. Oh, it's annoying because I have not finished my run. I barely have started it, but Yeah, it's interesting. There's a lot of interest in these books. I don't know if it's the Cayman art, Matt Baker, or when whatever is drawing interest into them. Where I'm seeing a lot of churn on eBay. I mean, back a couple months ago, there were maybe 3 or 4 books that I was interested in. A lot of really low end books or really high end books, but nothing in the range of books that I was interested in. And recently, my alerts on eBay are going off almost on a daily basis of something in the Zoot range that's available. So yeah, I will not claim to be an influencer. I will claim to have similar interests as a whole bunch of people apparently, and I hope to get my run. I hope to get farther in my run because I'm not going to get it finished anytime soon. Um, and as you know, Key Collector mentioned, and then it turned from Zoot to Rula Jungle Goddess in issue number 17. So you get the first 16 as Zoot, and then as they did a lot back then, they just kept the number and changed the title. So then you've got to do the Rula books, which went on for quite a bit longer.
Neither one of these are your purchases.
No, they're not.
Okay, we're going to put on the screen the Key Collector grabs. Because if you look, Zoot 14, a 6.0 sold for $1,800.
Mm-hmm.
That is up just under $700 from February this year.
Yeah.
And number 16 sold for $1,200. In February, it sold for $650, so almost double.
Yeah, that's amazing. At Baltimore, I bought a 15 and a 13, which I'm going to have to clean and press, and then probably submit. Plus, I have my number. I have my number 11.
Mm-hmm. 2.5 gift grade.
Yep, it is a gift grade. It really is a gift grade.
I'm just teasing you.
Higher than I expected. So yeah, great books. Again, I am a huge fan of the art, and it's so prototypical to a lot of the comics that came after it. And the Good Girl art is really, I think, the draw from these comics.
I will go ahead and blame you for these increases because, well, it's much like, Sailor Moon. Nobody was worried about Sailor Moon comics till I started talking about it on this show, and all of a sudden, kaboom. And of course, Raphael's mad at me now because I've driven up the prices. My next piece of viewer mail is from Wilson R.I. in reference to my rant about CGC last week with their greatest notes about fingerprints on all my books. Wilson writes, "Did I get someone on a bad day?" I asked last week. No. My recent submission had fingerprints on the back cover of an all-black Nintendo Comic System number 1, 995 variant. I used gloves as well. It came back at 8.5. Good. I'm not good that your book came back at 8.5. Good that I wasn't alone. I think this is, again, cyclical. I think it's more than just me. Guys, let us know. I'm bitter. Lots of people in the comments coming at me for saying I'm once again stepping away from CGC. Yes, I say that all the time because I do. I step away for a period of time and then I resubmit. I don't think I've ever said never again. Maybe I have. I don't know. But
no, I don't remember you saying never.
Yeah.
I have seen you angry, and I get angry too because you send in books and you don't get the grade that, or even close to the grade. I understand there's variances because this is a human-based grading system. So, a half grade here, maybe even a full grade, okay, I can swallow. But when it's like 3 grades off of what your expectations are, then there's something else afoot besides just your inability to match with whoever is grading your books.
Well, and also when it's the same note for almost every book in the submission, and it's not like I was eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when I was going through my books and submitting them. But CGC, you guys don't know him the way I do. He gets mad, and sometimes it's my fault. And just
he can change.
I can change him. Don't stay out of your business. Leave me alone.
It is kind of an abusive relationship, isn't it?
No, it's not. What's your next?
Viewer
By the way,
mail.
and scene. Okay.
Okay. My next piece of viewer mail is from a friend of the show, Charlie Dog, 7683. Congratulations on reaching the big 6K subscribers. Thank you. Thank you very much. You remain one of the best channels about comics on YouTube. Thank you.
Mm.
Richard, I'm very excited to see the Aussie book you have on the way. Okay, I am not going to attempt an Aussie accent because I will just embarrass myself. Stone the Flaming Crows, is it a Newton comic? Yes, it is. It is a Newton comic. Another member of our audience is an Aussie, and I'll talk more about it when it gets here. They had the book and offered it to me, and I took it up immediately because it's a cool book. Maybe a bloody Bonza Planet Comics DC reprint. Or a Golden Age reprint of the early Superman or Batman issue in stunning black and white. Note to Richard and John, nearly all the Aussie slang you hear on TV and in movies we do not use except in self-mockery. So now they're not throwing a bar,
Absolutely understood, Charlie Dog. I'll
Yeah.
explain why when Richard's done.
Okay. Online comics will draw more readers as physical comics increase further in price, as long as the online ones are cheaper. I agree. Pre-code horror and crime will remain popular, but I don't think they'll eclipse superhero titles. No, because the MCU and there will always be more superhero comics produced than horror comics. That's just the nature of the industry. So yeah, I think superhero comics will continue to be more popular, but there's always an undertone of popularity in their books, definitely. Yeah, I'm not going to share any more about the book. When it gets here, we'll talk about it. It's going to be a cool book. But thank you so much for the positive thoughts and for your comment.
Charlie Dog referenced all the bad Aussie slang. That's absolutely intentional. I'm sure you know. I'm the biggest fan of Kath and Kim. So you could have gotten me using all sorts of Kath and Kim isms, like, I can feel it in me, Walters, and Richard, look at me, Richard. So yeah, we get you to Charlie Dog. By the way, Charlie Dog, you guys are a little behind on getting us down there to Sydney and Melbourne.
Well, it takes a while for those tickets to get here from.
I guess I'm waiting for my invitation. My last piece of your mail is from Dart Fluke, who writes, "I don't always lean back, but when I do, it is for the 25-year rule." Which would make an awesome segue right into
awesome.
if it was 25-year rule week. However, it's not, because this week it's the old fart rule. Hey, segues are us.
I love it. Thank you so much for that segue.
Running gags galore. Hey, the old fart rule this week. We're going to talk about a sad one, I think. It's The Flash, issue 324. Behind this action-packed cover of The Flash manhandling a dead body, it was the beginning of the end for the original Flash, Barry Allen. This issue features the death of the Reverse Flash, which leads into a 2-year-long storyline, The Trial of the Flash, which basically killed this book. It also didn't help that the original Flash artist, Carmine Infantino, returned to the book, but with a much more angular and stylistic touch fans weren't entirely on board with. Again, as a kid, teenager, hated it, read it out of habit, love it now. I mean, it's really slick and weird, and I get what Carmine was going for. It is for a more mature comic fan, I think. But Carrie Bates, who was on this book forever, man, this storyline dragged on and on. It was, you think Lost was bad for 6 seasons. My Lord. The Trial of the Flash, you've got new girlfriend, new fiance, Barry Allen getting his face beat to a pulp and then getting plastic surgery and becoming a new person and then going to trial and getting kicked out of the Justice League. It was 2 years of this character losing
Wow.
never having a small victory, never winning. And, this ain't peanuts. We can't deal. Even Charlie Brown caught the fly ball once. So, uh, of course, sales went down to the point where this book was on the chopping block. So the decision was made to kill Barry in Crisis on Infinite Earths and relaunch later. The idea originally was for an entirely different Flash concept. They put the word out, DC, use the name, throw everything else out. And so there were like different pitches that had nothing to do with a speeding superhero,
Wow.
but none of them stuck. So nothing caught anyone's fancy editorially. So they relaunched with Wally West as the new Flash, Mike Baron and Jackson Geis. Fantastic run at the beginning. And then Mike Baron splits after about a year. But let's go back to Flash 324. A CGC 9.8 of this book last sold in August for $175, which kind of caught me by surprise. I didn't think this run was anything to write home about in terms of expense, but there you are. Did you read The Flash in 1983?
I was not reading The Flash at all. That was not one of my titles.
Yeah, I think I came in after the fact. I was working at Baker's Meats and Comics, as you guys all know, and the owner had multiples of a full run, and I just got not a full run of Flash, but a full run of this storyline, and I think I used my store credit to take home a bunch of Flashes, and I read the entire Trial of the Flash storyline, which was reprinted in a showcase volume recently. Man, what a slog. What do you guys think? Was it as terminally bad as I'm making it out to be? I'm curious what you guys think. But while we wait for your replies, we'll hit our underrated books of the week. Richard, you're taking me back to my childhood, the playground.
Yeah, it's I was looking through books trying to find one that I would consider underrated. This one brought back so many memories. It's Evil Knievel. It's actually not numbered. I have it number 1 in here, but it's from 1974. It was produced for the Ideal Company by the Marvel Comics Group. It's got pencils by John Romita, inks by Joe Sinott. It is hard to communicate to young folks today how super awesome Evil Knievel was back in the 70s. I mean, he was Superman in living flesh. He was amazing. For those who don't know, Evil Knievel was a stuntman. He jumped buses. He did all kinds of stunts on his motorcycle. He had action figures made for him that sold incredibly well. And Marvel Comics made this comic for a free comic giveaway for bike safety. Evil talks about being safe on a bike. Evil Knievel was hugely popular until he tried to cross the Snake River Canyon. John, do you remember that?
Oops.
It was a televised event. Actually, it was a pay-per-view event.
Yeah.
And you had to pay. This was back in the 70s again. And it was the talk of the week and the week before. And this is before the internet. So, to have people have buzz about something was a big deal. He got in a rocket. He tried to jump the Snake River Canyon, and he didn't make it. He actually ended up plummeting into the canyon itself. His chute popped, and he was able to survive the attempt. He tried some other stunts and had a serious accident a few stunts later, and he stopped performing. And that was kind of the end of the road for his action figures and his fame and popularity. He wasn't in people's faces anymore. This book, I have equate him to the Chuck Norris of the 70s, but Chuck Norris is always Chuck Norris, so I guess that doesn't really take an effect. There are only 143 books of this on the census. There's only 9.8s, and I think that has to do with the fact this was a free giveaway that was given away at stores. And they're giving away to kids. Kids don't take care of stuff. You're more interested in playing with your dolls, and so there's a very few 9/8s. The GPA on a 9.8, the last one sold, actually the only one in the last few years that sold in 2020 for $450. So there's some value here. I think people value that high grade because of its scarcity. John, do you remember? I know you remember Evil
Oh
Knievel.
yeah. Well, first of all, Evel Knievel was no human fly.
Oh boy.
You want to have trouble explaining something to kids, try explaining the human fly to kids. Evel Knievel, I believe this was pre-packed with the action figure motorcycle and the wind-up thing.
I looked at, there is very little information on the internet. I thought that too. And I found examples of that toy on eBay, and people opened the packaging for it, and there was no comic in there.
Maybe it was packed in with the van. Remember, there was an Evel Knievel action van where you could have the ramp, you could jump. I believe it was a pre-pack of some sort, or it was given away at the toy store, maybe in a display.
Right.
But yeah, Evel Knievel, man, he was a superhero. He was a real life superhero. He wore a costume and a cape. And the helmet was cool, and obviously an inspiration when Captain America came to CBS. He rode a motorcycle and had the same kind of look and feel and helmet and everything. But this, you guys in the comments, I know there's another old fart like me out there. I remember a warehouse find of these, but they were beat up. So that's why even though I think there was a warehouse find of these, but they were not 9.8 candidates. A box was discovered somewhere. So this is on the whole, not an entirely tough book to find in lower grade, but man, only 9.8s. That's crazy. And no 9.8 sales since 2020, even crazier. It missed the entire comic boom of 2022.
Yeah, it just brought me back so many memories to me. Sitting there watching our crappy, television, 19-inch television, whatever size it was, and just being engrossed in the adventures of this man who was a superhero to me.
Did you have this and along with the SST racers?
Yes, I did.
Of course.
Me and my brother, just Christmas time was always about, we had like a whole 6 months intro into the toys that we wanted for Christmas, because we knew that was our best shot at getting it. And we got the SST, and we got the Evel Knievel on the bike with on the little launcher stand.
Yep. Well, because you got the Sears catalog, you had all that time to
Yes.
peruse the toy section of the Sears catalog and say, I want this Mego, Mom, that's on page 268, this Mego Falcon figure. I have the Captain America. Don't give me Captain America. Falcon now.
Oh, yeah.
I'll have to find it. I have one of my Christmas want list letters to Santa from when I was 7. It's hilarious. It's all superhero crap. But Evel Knievel, SST racers. Remember the Demolition Derby?
Yes.
Car?
Yeah.
That's actually kind of a really fun memory, because they had like a little lever in the front of the Demolition Derby car. When he would hit something, the doors would fly off.
Right.
Yeah. What a brilliant little toy that was.
Hey, those toys are worth a lot. The Evel Knievel, the launcher toy, in pristine condition on eBay, I saw one for over $800. So,
Jace,
yeah.
What are you gonna do with it? Play with it, or just look at it on the shelf?
I'm surprised it survived not being played with. I mean, it's one of those toys that just begs to be played with.
It's Evel Knievel selling his overstock to pay for his medical bills. My underrated book of the week is a magazine.
Yeah.
It is this bad boy, Savage Sword of Conan #1. Ta-da! This is the first issue of a long-running magazine that ran for 235 issues from 1974 all the way to 1995. 21-year run.
Mm-hmm.
Not too shabby. A beautiful Boris Vallejo cover there with, I didn't notice this till today when I pulled out this Red Sonja.
Oh, yeah.
This is actually the second meeting of Conan and Red Sonja. And there is also a solo Red Sonja story inside. I don't know this for a fact, but I think this is the first solo Red Sonja inside. The 90-day average for a CGC 9.8 is $1,098, which is actually, believe it or not, trending up from the great comic boom of 2022 when it was only $843. Now, having said that, the 9.6 drop is very real for this book. A 9.6 runs you $325. I got this in a live sale, I think in 2020. And it's a magazine, so it's been sitting in a pile. Again, I'm organizing things. I'm finding things I forgot I bought, which are awesome. This is super sharp. I'm going to have to clean and press this and not send it in before you guys get on me. But I think it's going to be a 9.4 plus.
Those magazines are tough because you had bags and borders for comics. For a long time, you didn't have the equivalent for magazines. So you have you put your comics in your nice. I did this with my Love and Rockets books, for example. I had all my comics all bagged and boarded in the nice long box. Then I had some weird egg crate thing that had all my Love and Rockets, and I didn't read Savage Conan, but I read a lot of other magazines. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for example, the first ones are oversized. So they're difficult to get in high grade, I think, because they were hard to take care of.
Not only that, imagine who was buying Savage Sword of Conan in 1974 from some big old stoner with Jesus hair, doing bong rips while Deep Purple is blasting out of his stereo, and he's like, "Yeah, Red Sonja, man, she's."
Wow, you don't think there were people who were more erudite who were interested in the classics?
No.
No, man, those books also, there is no shortage of them. Every comic book convention I go to will have boxes of magazines, and in there are epic magazines because there's a billion of those, and there's a billion Savage of Conan. It's amazing how many there are out there.
People, they pass up magazines. I'm one of them. I pass them up unless there's something very specific I'm looking for. And it's a storage issue. We're creatures of habit. We have certain things that we want stored a certain way. Somehow CGC slabs have slipped through that crack and people have no problem storing those. But magazines, man, I mean, I'll save it for next week. I have a really good magazine that I'll show you next week. But Savage Sword, another bong hit for Conan. And as the haze of the weed smoke fills the room, we will bid you adieu.
We are not condoning that anyone take part of any kind of mind-altering drug.
Huh? Hey, you know what to do. I'm too tired.
Yeah, if you want to find us more of this goofy show on Instagram and Facebook, you can go to at Bronze and Modern Gods on the web.
You messed it up.
You can reach us at bronzeandmoderngods.com.
Yeah. Bye.
Everybody, stay safe.